welcome everyone here to Visions to Ventures. I have a really great guest here, Lee. I'm gonna have him introduce his business and kind of give more details about about him and anything else that we can go ahead and share. So, Lee, if you want to go ahead and
my business is called Ruck. And we just basically operate as a DoorDash for construction materials. So if your builder or your store needs to have something delivered, and we're basically trying to address that, you have this dynamic demand for deliveries. You might have a slow day,
okay,
and then you might have a day with a lot of deliveries. And so you got people that, if you hire a driver to be around permanently, then you're paying him on the slow days, and he might not be enough on the busy days. Okay. So with ours, by using a gig sort of economy, it addresses a dynamic demand with a dynamic supply. So it's like a DoorDash for construction materials. Keep it simple like that, yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of inspired you to start that? Like, what was one of how did you come about that?
Yeah. So I grew up doing a lot of construction stuff. My parents owned rentals, and so I grew up doing a lot of fixing stuff. And then through the years, I did a property management business, and then did a lot of remodeling stuff. And I got really familiar. Like at this point, I can do all the electrical by myself and plumbing and all that. So I was helping a friend out, and his electrician canceled on him, and then he had an inspection in 2 days. So I went in as a favor and roughed in all his electrical, but in the process, it was during supply chain issues, and I didn't have a chance to plan everything out. Okay. So I was sending him to the store 3-4 times a day, 5-6 times a day to Home Depot. And then we're just like, okay, well, we could start a business for this, because literally every job I have, if I'm doing repairs on my rentals or whatever it is, or my guys are there, they're running to the store all the time. Talk to some contractors, some handymen. They're like, dude, we totally use it because our guys are going to the store all the time. So that's just basically how it started, is how can we increase efficiency for one of the biggest industries in the world, construction. So
yeah, that's and I really like that, is I started off from seeing a need for that, which I don't think I would have myself kind of and I've done roofing before, but it's something just seeing that how you were kind of going back for what you even mentioned as far as hiring someone that's just going to be the runner versus just having when it's needed. Just
take roofing for example. I've done some roofing, and my roofers every time. So let's say you take off an old roof, and then now you got sheets of you got sheet wood that you have to replace because it's spongy, right? Okay. Or your fascia wood or something like that. You got these guys that you're paying $30 an hour at least. When my roofer comes by, he's paying his guys anywhere from $25 to $40 an hour.
Okay.
And you got these guys that are what are they going to do? Go, and all they need is maybe $100 worth of wood. They got to go all the way to Home Depot and pick up the wood and come back, or else they can't complete their job. Well, now they can stay on the job, get stuff done faster, and then by the time they're ready to replace the wood, it's already arrived. Your team can just stay there, right? You just place the order, and then through Ruck, we go pick up the wood, drop it off. Your team just stays there and keeps working. You don't even have to worry about anybody leaving the job site. You guys can go faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I'm sure if you mentioned, but it's an app, and people just go in there and they just kind of place their order, or?
Yeah. So the process goes like this. We understand that builders, they're very habitual people.
Okay.
Contractors, they're driven just by the next step in the process. And although you try to plan things out, in my experience, and in many of our users' experience, it's the same thing. You can't account for everything. You open up the wall and the stud's been rotted out, or whatever it is. You're missing a box of nails and you don't have enough screws or something. So, we recognize that we don't want to change their behavior too much. We call it behavior change, right? In any startup or any business, what you want to do is account for behavior change. Okay. So how much are you changing? Are you asking your customer to significantly change their existing behavior? The more you're asking them to change, the harder it is for them to adopt your service. Okay. So we said contractors already have their dedicated reps at SunPro or builders like BMC, right. Builders First Source, Burton Lumber, these places. They already have the reps that they're calling all the time. They already have their accounts at these stores. So why don't they just keep continuing to talk to the reps After they place the order, they just call Ruck or text us or use the app. And they just give us the order number, pick up, drop off information, and we just show up, pick up the stuff, and drop it off. So, yeah. So the process is contractors, they order from the store. Once they get the order ID, they give that to Ruck, let us know where to pick it up, where to drop it off. And then they just wait, and they get their materials in about 2 hours.
And that's and with that, it's not something like the companies that sell those those products that they have to have like a contract with you. It's just more like it's just through the app, like, and it's just the runner kind of like going.
Yeah, I mean we're partnered with Sunpro. They're a Clyde company, so Sunpro's doing like half $1 billion a year in sales. What we're trying to create for them in the partnership is to say, hey, you are not focusing on these smaller contractors. You're focusing on big home builders. They're buying $3 million worth of product at a time.
Okay.
These guys are buying $300,000 worth of product at a time. But if you put all those people together just in Utah, you're looking at anywhere from $30 to $70 million a year in revenue that you could be doing that you're not. And we understand it's very fragmented and scattered. But if we come in and we gather all those people up and we introduce them to Sunpro, then you get more business. So that's the partnership side. But other than that, there's no need for a contract with a supplier,
Okay.
Like Burton Lumber, we've asked them if they want to partner, and they're like, no, we got our own delivery guys. But they're in the habit of seeing Ruck people come in, our Ruck, truck drivers come in, and they're like, oh yeah, it's the Ruck guys. Like, give them your stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
So it's just that. So now where you're, they're even at the moment where they said no, seeing that there's more Ruck and more of your.
Well, they don't want to replace their own drivers, right?
Okay.
When we first came in, there's a couple of competitors out there that were like, hey, we can help stores cut their driver cost by replacing their existing drivers with a gig type service. And it's idealistic in theory, but then when you do a practical application of it, they're delivering 40-foot trusses that are 8 feet wide. You need a semi or some gooseneck trailer for that kind of stuff. Okay. And then to get it off the truck, you need some kind of crane, right? They want quality control. Trusses can break really easily.
Okay.
So Burton Lumber or Sunpro, after they built the truss and they want to drop off the package, make sure it gets there in all in one piece. You have a gig driver come along. He doesn't have a crane. He might have the trailer. Once he gets to the job site, number one, he can't get it off the trailer. Number two, he might break it if he tries to muscle it off the trailer. And so he said, let the vendors do their deliveries as normal. But all the other little bits and pieces that contractors are going back to the job or going from the job site to the store 2-3 times a day, 6-7 times a week. Let's take care of all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, behavior change. We're not telling the vendors to change their behavior.
Correct.
We're supplementing. We're not telling the contractors to really change their behavior. They're still calling the same people to place the order. But instead of then texting their worker to go pick up the stuff, they're texting us. And then the worker gets to stay on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as when you asking as far as partnership, and then you have someone that says no, like how do you go from? Is that something that you feel was kind of something that set you back, or were you like, oh, I'll just continue doing my business and then doing me and providing the service that I do, to kind of seeing that building, like knowing that even though you got rejected, you're still going with that, that company and providing whatever service. Like, I know it would affect the driver, but how was that like for you?
I mean, you're basically looking at, for us, it was having a contract with a vendor. We call them vendors, right? Never was really a critical roadblock to our base model.
Okay.
So our base model is our customer, our core user is going to be the contractor. So, there's 50,000 of them around Utah, something like that. If one says no, we just go on to the next guy.
Okay.
He's the guy with the money. He's the guy that's paying. So if the vendor says no to having Ruck pick it up on behalf of Keith Paskett from Anthem Custom Homes, one of our customers, well, then the store is losing out on an opportunity to make his money. Okay. So we've had a couple of vendors be like, we don't know you guys. You guys can't pick up for this $10,000 order for this company. Like, you have to call them, have them call us, and then pre-approve it. And then the contractor gets annoyed and orders from a different store the next time, and still tells Ruck to go pick it up.
Oh, okay. So, so in a way, it's like
that store just lost the next $10,000 order.
Correct. Wow, that's good too. I mean, that's very interesting because it's in a way they're like, well, we don't know you, but they're with that is like they're losing that customer. And
so I mean, so you basically have, when you're starting a software company,
mm-hmm.
this is oversimplifying it. You have kind of retail or consumer sales, and you have enterprise sales, B2B businesses. So either you're trying to go and score a big, enterprises as your customers, or you're trying to score consumers, everyday people as your customers.
Okay.
There's pros and cons to each, especially when you're entering enterprise sales. You're either going for like the big sales or the small sales. So like, for example, you're going for the company that has, 50 people, or the company that has, 5,000 people in it. But the more you rely on those 5,000 people companies, every lost opportunity starts to cut into your long-term vision.
Okay.
But every one that you gain, it's just higher risk, high reward.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go towards like customer sale, you got to have so much volume.
Okay.
So like, if your restaurant doesn't get enough customers, you're dead in the water. And even if it gets 10 customers a day, you're still dead in the water, because that's not enough to sustain your business. But if you get 10 customers that are at the 5,000 per company size type situation, like that could be enough to be your whole revenue model.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
And then, so when you start off like Ruck, and was it just like a text, and was there a website, or was it just more like how was it word of mouth, or how is it that like?
Yeah. So for anybody that's trying to start software, okay, we'll start with the story. So back in the day when I did my first startup, it was called Venga, and we won some competitions at BYU. We got some investor money, and then we went and launched it. And I was super embarrassed to tell anybody about how we built it, because the initial version was just built off of Wix. So the Wix site. And, we were developing a mobile app and everything. We made Ruck where we are today because our investors now met me back during when I was doing my first startup.
Okay.
And Brent, his name's Brent, he asked me what my build was, and I finally admitted it was Wix, and he was like super happy about it. And I was like, well, why would you be happy about it? He goes, because you didn't spend a bunch of money developing software right off the bat. You try to find the scrappiest, cheapest way to do what we call bootstrap, like bootstrap your startup.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how to code back then. So he basically said, you are not a technical founder, but you found a way to get your business off the ground with whatever tools you can get. You didn't let it stop you. So for anybody that's ever trying to start an app or a software service or any sort of service that is predicated on some sort of technology, like spreadsheet, cell phone. That's all you need. And then maybe a Wix landing page if you really want people to have somewhere to go and view your business. But if you can make it work with the spreadsheet and a cell phone, then when you build your technology, it's going to be that much more. Your technology should be an enabling tool, not your foundational tool for most softwares. So like a friend of mine, he started a company called Dree. And Dree is like gig service for laundry.
Okay. So
if you want someone to do your laundry, you just subscribe and you put it out on your doorstep in a bag. They pick it up, wash it, bring it back. They still haven't built a mobile app, and they're at $25,000 a month in revenue.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not something that didn't stop him. Like, hey, it's working for them, and
yeah, I know, and he's doing great. And he's not a coder, but he just went, I think I can make this work with just a spreadsheet. I think it's like a WordPress website, and then he just calls people. Takes down their information, puts it in a spreadsheet, sets them up on some sort of recurring payment system that you can use with Shopify or Stripe or whatever. Okay. But yeah, he's doing great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that brings me as far as to like, you shouldn't let your knowledge of skills to kind of stop you from,
or lack of knowledge.
Or lack of knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the worst, the saddest excuse you could ever have, or the saddest, I don't want to say excuse, but it is. The saddest reason anyone would ever have to not start up is I'm not a technical founder. You're trying to create a business. Business doesn't need a computer necessarily. I mean, unless you're trying to do like some crypto, some really high tech stuff, or like robotics or something, or AR. But the base has to still be a business model. So for most ideas that people have, probably over 80% of people that have ideas that I talk with, you got to prove out the business, and you can prove out a business with a spreadsheet and a cell phone. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, like, for example, if you were to do marketing for if you were to run like a marketing business, right? Like, why does a website even matter for your business? Like, it should be someone comes to you, is like, hey, can you help me with my marketing? And the next thing you know, you're like, boom, like Facebook ads, their website, Google ads, you understand Blip, like all these different things, Instagram ads. Like, you don't need a software platform for that. If someone wants to start up like a grocery delivery business, they just need to make sure their customers know what phone number to call.
Okay.
Anyways.
Which is, it's funny because for me starting off, it's like, oh, I need a website, but then I'm seeing like, and I thought it was like, I need a website so I can show my work, as far as like, I don't want someone just to be like, hey, I can do your website for you. But then they're like, well, where's your website? Instead of like, well, let me build it and show you like the work and all that, how it is, the quality, and then that way you can kind of.
Well, I'm just saying, like, what they really want at the end of the day is just proof that you can do your job right. And so if you have any previous work or portfolio stuff, you can just be like, hey, look at this website. Anyways, okay. I'm saying like more for like software stuff, but people get a little too worked up on software.
Okay.
Holdups and technical holdups.
And so what was like, as far as one of the biggest challenges for you, or what are the challenges as far as starting your business?
My initial gut reaction was to say, like, when do I quit my full-time job? But that actually wasn't that hard to make a decision on. The hardest part, I think, to starting up a business, because it's a whole process, is not just day one, but probably about 8 months in. You're at some point within the first 10 months, I'd say, you're going to hit some sort of obstacle that's like, it can threaten everything. So for us, it was the housing market kind of tanked, right? No. And so people were canceling on our builders. And so the hardest part of any business at that point, when you have a big roadblock or a big crisis, is to say, do we keep with our current model, or did we make some drastically wrong assumption with our current business model? When things are not turning out the way that we expected it, like, what do we do? Do we change, or do we stay the course? I think that's like the most challenging thing. Even now, is like for little things throughout the whole, every month there's something that pops up and I'm like, did I make the wrong decision? And there's no data to like back it up, because we don't have time to go out and gather and ask a bunch of people, like, did we do this right or do this wrong? It's like, if you don't make a decision now, your business could die next month.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So for us, it's basically like when you hit something that makes you doubt your whole model, like, are you strong and stay the course, or are you smart and pivot when needed? That's a hard decision.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to tell you which way to go. They're all going to say, well, here's the pros and cons to each one. Yeah. Which is like, thanks, that didn't really help.
And it's like, it's on you to make that choice.
It's on you.
And it's adapt to those changes and challenges that come up. I mean, that's kind of...
And your whole team's relying on you, right? Like, if you make a wrong decision and the company goes under, people lose their jobs. But if you change or if you stay, either way.
And currently, with the company, do you have employees?
Yeah.
And, so how was it? And I just like to know, because how was it that? What was the type of feeling that you had when you had your first employee? Like, was it kind of like knowing? Were you mostly like using, as far as, okay, I need to, kind of spread my work that I have, or? But I guess that's kind of like pivoting somewhere else. I like just to know how was the feeling of having an employee, like getting them to start your business? Because I feel for me, you know, I feel like for anything is like, yeah, you have your own business, but then I want to know people's like, is it like when you had your employee, like the excitement, how, you know?
Well, it's scary, man. Like, it is exciting, but it's also super scary because it's scary for two reasons. You're scared for yourself and you're scared for them. Mm-hmm. You're scared for yourself because you're like, if I spend $5,000 a month on this person for their salary or whatever, you know, are they going to be worth the $5,000 or are they going to flop? And you can't find out until at least like 3 weeks in, maybe, if that's really soon too, like a month in, and you've already spent $5,000 on this person's salary and health benefits and everything. And turns out they don't really even care about working for you, or they're just, you know, flash in the pan, super passionate at the beginning. Once they got the job, they just kind of slacked off. Like, what happens? You might be afraid of that. Also afraid that they might not do as good of a job as you. On the other side, you're scared because you're like, wow, this person's livelihood or their savings or their financial plan is now dependent on me.
Okay. Which
is pretty terrifying, you know? It's not like, it's scarier than when you have to quit your own full-time job. Is when you convince someone else to quit their job.
Because
it's scary. Because yourself, you're like, well, this is my business, my plan, my choice.
Yeah.
If I quit my job and this doesn't go anywhere, that's fine. I can take it. But if they lose their job, that's still on you as well. You know. So, yeah, that's scary.
No, it's. I had my last guest. It was just like, she was like, yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna do it if I still had a job, you know, that was holding me back in a way.
Yeah.
And so I just quit, you know, and that was kind of like being fearful. And then all of a sudden, you know, like starting a family right there with you thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start and then just do my business, become a realtor, you know. But then the challenges that come with it and knowing that it's still fearful. Like, because I don't really see, like, I haven't, you know, experienced that feeling, but knowing that, okay, now, like, if that happens, it's not just myself, like, you know, having to survive. It's that person that I you know, not convinced, but they saw the vision and like, oh, I'm going to go in and see what we can do, you know.
Yeah, but one other thing that I want to add about employees, like hiring employees, is the difference between my first startup and my second startup was the first startup, I was pretty hard on my employees, and I had really great high expectations for them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But at the end of the day, they did not birth this project. And they might be passionate about it, but they might not also have the same vision for it and the complete vision of your business as you do. So you have to be forgiving. And you have to be tolerant. And you have to be understanding. And you have to be very genuinely caring for them. So for Ruck, like, I decided if I hand someone the reins to a certain project or a certain department, I really got to just step away and not manage them at all. So like Aaron, who came on, he was at Intel for several years as a pricing and supply chain specialist and director or something. But like, I handed ops, all the operations, to him. And when something even goes down the drain or crap hits the fan, you know, and it's just a, you know, trying to watch my language here.
No,
when it's like,
when it's
like, when it's just like, you know, a shitstorm out there, even if he's not doing what I would do, I just have to not step on his toes and not text him and call him and be like, dude, did you do this? I can't believe you did that. Because you just have to be like super tolerant. People have different ways of doing things, and they are going to make mistakes. And employees, if you get mad at your early employees over small mistakes, right? I'm talking small mistakes can be something that maybe screws today or screws this week.
Okay.
But as long as it doesn't screw your entire vision, it counts as a small mistake.
Okay.
Like, if you don't tolerate them at that point, there's no reason why they're going to love your idea back.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, baking shop, restaurant, retail business, software company, whatever it is, it's got to be super tolerant of your initial team, because you're like, they're putting a lot of trust in you as well by joining your team. Okay. You know?
Lisa, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs trying to start out, you know, their ideas, or
like for their ideas?
Yeah, like just anything. What advice would you?
because I'm trying not to do like a here's my process that I'm going to guarantee that it will work. Because anybody that says here's the way you do a startup or like a business, they've never really done, like if they are like my way is the way, they don't know really what starting a business is like, because there's no one formula. So I'm trying to avoid that, but I'd say like, yeah, the core thing that was really valuable to me, I can say that, something that was passed on to me that was very valuable that I think is widely applicable is like you just gotta stay lean, like stay super lean on all your. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter if you're starting a snow shack, like a snow cone shack, or jewelry business, or online e-commerce, or a software company. Software people will often learn this concept of staying lean, but it's not as widely taught in other industries. But in software, it's very much taught. There's Lean Startup 2.0. There's Nail It Then Scale. There's a bunch of different books out there that's like how to stay lean. And what I'm saying is, like, whatever your core value is that you're trying to deliver to customers, focus on that, and all the peripheral stuff. Don't even build it. Don't even do it. Because, for example, if you're a restaurant, like the purpose of the restaurant is to create good food for people, right? And if you can get people to come to your restaurant without fancy chairs, fancy lighting, fancy tables, you just get the bare stuff in there, then you've got a successful business. And then you can add in the chairs and the tables and all that kind of stuff, because you've already proven out that people are willing to come for your food. No. If your software, if your goal is to get for construction materials from point A to point B, like our initial landing page was still just a Wix page. It was people calling into our phone number, and we didn't have a mobile app or anything for like the first 8 months. Okay, so for 8 months, we generated probably about $20,000-$30,000 in revenue, and we didn't have a mobile app or anything, right? Because that's not what drives the value. What drives the value is the fact that they can call us and make sure that things are delivered on time. Okay. So I think that's like the most important thing, because what that'll do is it'll help you focus on one mission, and if something breaks, you know exactly what broke. Because if you have only one feature, and it's your ultimate feature, which is to get materials from point A to point B, or it's the best snow cone, or it's a hot dog, or it's your jewelry, whatever it is, if nobody's coming to buy it, then you know that thing is wrong, right? But if you add in like 15 different other elements, like, our restaurant, we're going to have good food, good lighting, good ambiance, we're going to have open window concept, we're going to be at this location, all these things. When it breaks, you're like, I don't know if it was the location, I don't know if it was the seating, I don't know if it was the food, I don't know if it was our servers, like all the ambiance. So if you reduce those as many variables that can complicate your analysis as possible down to just like the core vision, then your job is going to be a lot easier to figure out what you're doing right or wrong.
So like, you're putting it, so like, okay, so as you said, right, the restaurant, the food is what's bringing in, right? And then as you're adding, the chairs.
I mean, if that's your goal, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And then, but it's like, I mean, the way you're explaining it is, what I'm trying to see is like, so as you're slowly adding more to it, right? And then all of a sudden you're losing customers because you're forgetting about the food, the quality, or what it was that brought in. Yeah. So now it's like, okay, I focused too much on one thing.
Yeah, yeah. Area. Or like if once you've proven out one thing and you move on to the next thing, then if it breaks, it's the thing that you just added. Because the previous thing already brought in customers. So like they're liking the food, and then you change the decor, and then people stop coming in. It's like, the decor was what was wrong, Yeah. But if you launch both at the same time, food and this fancy decor that you're not sure if people are going to like, it's like both crazy ideas at the same time. Now it's exponential. Now you've got two things, and then if you add in a third thing, it's a permutation. It's 3 times 2 times 1. So now you got 6 times as many different things that could go wrong in a combination, because it could be, like. Option 1, like ABC, it could be because of the combination between A and C. Okay. That is putting people off, or A and B, that's putting people B and C, or A, B, and C. Yeah. Like, you're not sure what went wrong, But like, so that's like, it helps you test out things. And then the second thing that's really important is saves you money, right? Again, let's use the restaurant example. If the food is what's going to drive the customers in, like I go to a taco shop in Provo, that's like, there's no ambiance, but I'm going there because the carne is good, right? The nopales is good, right? Like, yeah, it's good,
yeah.
right? And then like, there's another place in like, there's like this is why people go to Chinese, like authentic Chinese food restaurants. Authentic Chinese restaurants are known for not having ambiance, but they're doing crazy business because it's good.
Yeah, correct.
Right? When you go like when you want authentic anything, you find like the crappiest place.
The hole in the wall?
The hole in the wall, because if they're still in business after 15 years of being crappy decor, that's because their food is good, right? But then, like, for example, Soul Agave here in American Fork, I love it because their food was really good. They've been there for like 15, 20 years. And then now they made it fancy.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then it's like even better. Yeah. And it's like they made it fancy, up the prices by like 20%. People still paying it. Yeah. It's like, it's good. But, you know, like, again, saving costs. You know, so you get to test things out easily when you stay lean. And then you also get to save cost when you stay lean. Okay. So, like, if the food is driving people in, then you haven't spent money on the decor. Now you can slowly make your decision on what the decor is. Next step is find your location, but you're not spending all your money at once. Okay. Yeah.
What is did you ever have like your as you're starting your business, or even currently at the moment, did you ever have like a doubters or anyone that was like, dude, this isn't gonna succeed, or this isn't
Yeah, well, so where we live, you know, we're in Utah, where a lot of people are very positive. Like, they try to be as positive as they can, right? You're not going to get as many of those kind of people. There are a couple of VCs like Kickstart, Seed Fund. I think they're just called Kickstart Fund now. But Gavin Christensen over there is different because he likes to give people very concise, critical, and encouraging feedback, both. But a lot of people just like to say, oh, that's a cool idea. Those people are the most useless people because they haven't, like, in the most wonderful way, like, thank you for being encouraging, but I'm already psyched about my idea. Yeah. I don't need you to encourage me to be psyched about my idea. I need a little bit more fear. Okay. You know, I need to be a little bit more cautious. So, like, the people that I bring on as, like, my first founders, they're totally different personalities than me. Our investors, they're a lot more chill than I am. And I picked my investors strictly because they're people that will give it to me straight. Okay. You know, so... yeah, there's doubters. There's all, like, but the best doubters, the ones that you should probably seek out, the doubters that are actually going to tell you, I think it's going to fail because of this problem. And then if enough people are saying that, you should probably take a look at that problem. Like, don't be drinking your own Kool-Aid. Like, don't get high on your own supply, kind of thing. You know, like, that's very dangerous, man. Like, because then, for instance, for my first startup, we went down a rabbit hole. We spent $35,000 on technology. That ended up, we dumped like 6 months after we developed it because we're so excited about what we were building, and we did not listen or seek out the naysayers. But if we had went and talked to enough of those people that said, I don't know about your model, we probably could have saved, you know, 25 out of that $35,000.
So stay away from those yes man type of, you know.
I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't want to talk them down, but it's not helpful. Is not helpful for your business plan. Okay. They're good for you when you're down and discouraged and you're depressed, because you're going to have those moments as a business starter, like an entrepreneur. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be anxious beyond belief and depressed beyond belief during certain times. Those people are important then. Yeah. But when you're super hyped, they're the least helpful, you know?
Okay.
in the most friendly way. They might be down to help you out with your business and stuff, but I'm saying their advice, like their feedback of, I think it's awesome. Like, after a certain amount of people that say that, anyone beyond that is just repeating what the previous people have said. So you're like, you wouldn't be starting your business if you thought it was stupid. Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. You know? So like, it's good. And honestly, I think parents are probably like your best source. Because your mom will give it to you straight. Yeah. You know, your mom will tell you stupid idea. Or your mom will be like, you know, I think that's a good idea, but have you ever thought about this? And you could be like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to do. But dude, like, moms and dads, they're going to give it to you the most straight, right? Right. Because they've, you know, like, they've wiped your butt. They're going to give it to you straight. You know?
And I like that because I know it, you know, like, as far as like the culture, right? Like, it's you know, Hispanic Latinos are like, you know, tough, like do this, ain't gonna work. But for me, it's using that motivation, right? Like, oh, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll make it work, right? But and then the parents is like, well, like, yeah, good job. Like, you know, you're starting. We're proud of you, and I guess that's the encouragement. But you know,
yeah, and again, like recognize what kind of person you are. If you're inherently very optimistic, you want to find the people that give you the critical feedback. But if you're inherently a very depressed person, like very self-doubtful, you might want to find the people that give you the more positive feedback, but like real, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying a lot of this is coming from me.
Okay.
And there are people that need different mixtures of all different kinds of. So what I'm spouting off right now is what worked for me, you know. But sometimes you need the encouraging people to push you over the edge.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's all different. But like I know, like my parents Asian, very critical, you know, like. But when I turned off the emotional response to whatever they're saying as much as I can, you know, because when parents say something, like, ugh, you know, but when you turn that emotional response off and you finally listen to what practical things they're saying, you go, holy crap, this would have like helped me avoid so many mistakes in my life.
Yeah.
And it's still good to make those mistakes, but when you take on investors and you're using their money, you kind of want to minimize your amount of mistakes. You know?
And that was going to lead me to a question, the keys to success. Like, but you said, you know, just what works for you is not going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it was in a way I'm trying to get at is like, you might have your personal like experience, but it might be totally different from someone. But also you feel like that shouldn't discourage someone, right? From like, cause see, trying to, what I'm trying to get at is like, even with those challenges that might be different from yours, you know, is to continue going with that process, you know, and having those naysayers, but also having those ones that are going to give it to you straight, like, hey, you know, this might have been
I think it's just a balance.
Yeah.
Like in all things, this is so like maybe cliche, but yeah, just make sure you have balance. Like if you're taking a big risk, balance it with like some conservative side. Like if you have a bunch of yes men, find some naysayers. If you have too many naysayers, find some yes men. Just try to make sure you have a balance on all sides. Like I don't know if that kind of answers the problem.
No, it does. Yeah, it is.
But like, I guess that would personally, I think, apply to everything that you do. I think regardless of the type of person you are, this would be probably the one thing I would say should be universal is like, if you're trying to be super complicated on technology, try to find a way to simplify it down. If you're too simple, at some point you probably want to make it a little bit more sophisticated. Just kind of balancing everything out a little bit. I don't know.
What is something that you want to leave the listener, viewers, you know, everyone, whether it be business owners, entrepreneurs, what is something that you want to leave them and be like, hey, just anything. What is this is kind of like.
I think you should do it, man. Like, whatever your business is, have a good trigger for what marks a green light for you to go do it. Some people get stuck in analysis paralysis, you know, like they get stuck there and like, oh, what if this happens? Then, you know, it's going to be trouble. And if I fail at this, then, you know, my family might not have enough, you know, I can't afford to feed my family and all. Or like, oh, is this competitor too big? And are they going to eat us up? And should we even start? I'd say the best way to find out if your idea is good or bad is just to do it. But again, stay lean, stay very cheap, and then make sure you have like a good marker for like green light. For me, it was I had enough investment money where I could pay my own salary. So I didn't have to touch my savings. So my wife and I didn't have to worry about that. And it wasn't much. Like our first check was for $25,000 from investors, right? Small. That's peanuts, right? $25,000 for a software startup is like peanuts. That's like, okay, like investors are investing, they have a $250 million fund. It's like less than 1%. Yeah, it's like less than 1%. It's like 0.1%. Can't remember. But like for us, that was like, okay, I can run for 5 months by paying myself a salary, and I'm not going to risk this. So that was my green light.
Yeah.
For other people, your green light might be something different. You know, X amount of people giving you positive feedback versus whatever. But I don't know, maybe that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. But it's the American dream, dude. You're not going to have another country. Like, there's many great countries out there. But the thing that America is best at is giving people financial opportunities.
Okay.
No other country has as many financial opportunities as America. They have opportunities. But only here in America can you be an immigrant that comes here with nothing and then end up 15 years later with 15, 20 years later with like 3 kids that went to grad school and you might own like a business that generates $200,000 a year in income, and you can buy your own house, and you can do that all within one lifetime. Any other country out there, like, it's not like this. So I'd say if you're in America and you have a really good idea, try it out, man. Like, that's the American dream.
I totally agree. And that's kind of like what I want people to get from all this is like, just do it, try, if you're an immigrant, if you first generation, second generation, is for me to like, just break that cycle and do something for you, but and also like, do it to better your family and stuff. And that's why for me, it's like, it kind of turns into more of a motivation, like from the guests. It's like, hey, like you did it, you had your challenges, but now, you have your business, you're seeing a vision too, that you're gonna, make it bigger. You have different ways that you're gonna do, and kind of going that route, and then just freaking do it,
Yeah. And just it's balancing, right? So you should freaking definitely go and do it.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's like balancing it out. So what is the opposite counterweight to freaking go do it is manage your risk. So just make sure you have a cutoff for like, this is what is going to tell me to go and what's going to tell me to stop, Okay. Make sure you have also like a marker for, if I see this happen in my business, I got to stop.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, I would say very clearly it needs to be credit card debt.
Yeah.
If your credit card debt exceeds what you're able to pay back in 3 months, hold on, put a red flag on this thing, reanalyze making sure you're doing the right thing, or should you stop? Like 3 to 6 months. If you can't pay your credit card debt for sure back in like 3 to 6 months, you got to stop. Because that's a really bad road to go down. For us, it was like, I promised myself, we're not going to take credit card debt. We're only going to take investment money. And if that dries up and I can't pay myself if I can't pay myself a salary and I have to, and the only other option is to touch savings, we're done.
Yeah. Okay. That's
my self-defined like freeway exit. If I see that exit sign, I'm taking it. Okay. Because I got a plan for my family. So just make sure, like, before you start a business, you have, here's what's going to give me the signal to go. Here's what's going to give me the signal to get out. Yeah. And if you have those two things in there, and your spouse or your partner or your companion, like you guys are on the same page, and your business partners are on the same page.
Where this is like your time for, as far as like, I think the young people call it plug, where you can plug in your information, Yeah. I say young because I don't know. But where can someone find you? Well, this is kind of your time to market,
ruckdelivery.com, Ruck Delivery on the App Store. So if you're looking on Android or iOS, it's Ruck, RUCK Delivery. So you'll find us on the App Store or ruckdelivery.com, either of that. So if you're doing a DIY project, or you're a contractor, home builder, handyman, whoever needs stuff from the store, give us a call, see what we can work out. You can call us, you can text us, you can use the app. We're basically trying to make it as open as possible. Okay. You can get anything from anywhere as long as it's in construction. So
yeah. Well, Lee, do you have anything besides that? Anything else?
No.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, well, I want to first of all say thank you for your time. For coming and giving that insight. That motivational, like, just do it.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate everything, answering that message and giving me the opportunity.
For sure.
For the listeners out there and viewers, please make sure. Follow you. You mentioned your Instagram, right? You have social media?
At Ruck Delivery.
At Ruck Delivery. Follow him, and then use his services and you've seen it firsthand here, the information. So thank you everyone for your time. For the listeners out there, again, this is Visions to Ventures, and thank you for everything.